All right, welcome to another episode of Asset Coach and Tax Strategist. So today's episode is just going to continue this conversation that we've been having the last few episodes about taxes and kind of this is tax season and now we're far enough into 2026 to where we can report on 2025. And so what I want to do is kind of revisit this population migration conversation we've had in previous episodes and kind of go through this process of why are people moving from certain states. And and we always think that it's a political thing, and the politics of these states determine the laws, right? Obviously. So if people are leaving because of taxes, which is really the biggest reason, that's due to the political environment. It's due to the politicians making these decisions. But not all states that are growing are extremely tax efficient from an income tax perspective. So, for example, South Carolina has the fastest per capita growth in the country. Doesn't mean it's a tax-free state. Florida is. Florida grew in 2025 by 6.9%. Okay. Texas grew by 23. Right. If we were to look at a net migration loss gain per 10,000, that's essentially, Texas does have a tax-free. Florida does as well, but didn't grow as much as South Carolina. And so South Carolina being the highest, why? What's going on? Well, yes, it does have to deal with taxes, but I think it's just the environment. I think people are just kind of tired of they want to go back to the traditional values. I think really is where it comes down to. People are just inundated with the pressure or the putting in your face some of these agendas that are just not normal family values, if you will. So, for example, California lost 25.1 people over per 10,000 residents in 2025. New York lost 28.2. Massachusetts lost 37.9, Maryland lost 27.4, Illinois lost 14.5. Meanwhile, look at what's gaining. So those are losses, right? The gaining is South Carolina, like I'd mentioned, added 79.7 per 10,000. Tennessee added 43.6. Arkansas added 33.3. Oklahoma added 26.4. Wyoming added 26. Montana added 23.4. And then Texas added 23. Now, I know certain states like North Carolina, Oklahoma, living in North Texas like I do. I've known people here in Texas that have relocated to South North Carolina and Oklahoma, and even Florida. Well, why would they do that? Well, because it wasn't about the taxes, it's about the cost of living as well. Certain, like North Texas is some of the fastest growing cities in the nation are in North Texas. So that causes the cost of living to increase. People sell, they push out, they leave, just like with people in California selling their house, taking their gains, coming to Texas or Tennessee or North Carolina. There's that migration. That migration is the key here. Now, New York's high cost of living alone drove 55,000 people out of the state in 2025. Texas gains over 68,000 new residents in 2025, on top of the amount of people that they've gained over the last 5 and 10 years. South Carolina now has the fastest per capita per population. We talked about that. This really isn't a random situation. People are voting with their moving trucks, right? They've tried to vote, they've tried to do it in the polls, and finally they're like, you know what, this isn't my fight. I'm moving on. Let my money, let my values move on to someplace that appreciates that. And so they're voting against high costs, high taxes, standard of living. And so they're just saying, see you later. I'm going to go to those places. Now, here's the problem. When you have that, supply and demand is supply and demand. You have a lot of people move to South Carolina. It's going to cause the cost of living. It's going to cause these things to go up. The infrastructure is going to go up. So there has to be a revenue that goes to helping things. So there's a balance, though, right? That's the key. There's a balance. For example, where we're at, the taxes, when you look at taxes in California, taxes, yeah, Texas does not have a income tax in the state. but we do have higher property taxes than California. But the use tax versus the income tax are different, right? I don't mind, me personally, this is my opinion, I don't mind paying taxes in things that I use. So when I register my car, I'm okay with paying a higher registration fee. That's okay. It's actually not higher than California, but I wouldn't mind that. I don't mind paying higher property taxes. Essentially, what I do mind is the amount of property taxes I pay that go to the school system that I don't have kids at. What I do mind is that how they spend the money. And if you look at some of these Texas schools, the new one is outdoing the previous one. It's ridiculous. They're bigger and grander than a lot of college campuses in the country. That I do mind, right? So we have to decide where are we going to move to and what are we going to shift to and that sort of stuff. And that's our choice as individual households and the determination we get to choose. This has a direct effect to your net cash flow on a monthly basis. And that net cash flow is how do you build your wealth is determined on your net cash flow. So you got to reduce your expenses. You have your gross cash flow and you have your net cash flow. And the more net cash flow you have that equals to your growth, meaning your expenses are lower, the more you can put into things to build your wealth and build your future and your nest egg, right? The lifestyle, so to speak, if you will. That's all important as we go through this determination of migration. And it's been happening since 2020. What's happening before that? Right? But it got extremely accelerated in 2020. And so we're still seeing that because things really haven't, our eyes are open, right? Now we question everything, no matter who's saying what, we're questioning everything. I don't care what politician it is or what affiliation they have. I don't care who's saying what. It's like, why are they saying that? That's the benefit. We should be questioning things, right? Trust yet verify is what Reagan said. Actually, that wasn't a Reagan saying. That was actually a Russian saying. One of the oligarchs in Russia that was their saying. Trust yet verify. And yet here we are doing the same thing. That's perfectly okay. That's the beautiful thing about being in a free country like America. It's a beautiful thing about deciding on what state we want to move to or what city or county. We get to choose that. That's your choice. 100%. My lifestyle has changed since leaving California to coming to Texas. It has. But a lot of that had to do because my net cash flow increased. I was able to make some determination and decisions and changes, and that had a direct effect as to what our lifestyle was like, right? And what we were able to do and what we weren't able to do. And so that's the key. That's what we each get to do. And so hopefully you're thinking about that. Are you in a position to focus on your cash flow, your gross versus your net, and how close can you get your net to your gross? Because the difference there would be your expenses. Your expenses are that gap. And if you can shrink up your expenses, your net increases and gets closer to your gross. You have more profit. You have more cash. That's the key. And so what you do with that now, that takes planning. That takes strategic focus on what that looks like. So thanks so much for joining us. If you're a subscriber, thank you for subscribing. If you like our content, give us a thumbs up. If you like to add a comment, please do so. Thanks so much. Go make it a great day.